What a treat this is. I can't think of a guy. I mean, he should own every shovel in North America that digs in like my dear friend Justin Williams. And Justin, thanks for joining me. Happy belated 4th of July. I have to start as I start every show by asking you, how does Justin Williams define digging in?
Digging in. Thank you for having me, Tripp. A pleasure to be on this podcast. We spoke at length over this over the last couple of weeks. But getting to your question, digging in, I believe, not just in hockey, whether it be any job you have, a parent, policeman, a teacher, hockey player, it's buckling down and getting the best possible out of yourself. And I would say that's probably what it is. Just not taking no for an answer, being able to rise above challenges and really dig in and get what you want out of life for the job that you're in. How about that?
Well, I mean, music to my ears, and I'm going to try to go to work with it because I think that you've proven, don't let this go to your head, that you could dig into the epicenter of the earth. Hey, happy belated 4th of July. It was one of your kids, your son Jackson. It was his birthday Friday, but I was driving to the studio, Justin, and I thought to myself when I texted you, when was it that you became a U.S. citizen? I remember congratulating you. And what was the hardest part of the test?
The test actually wasn't too bad. It was the studying that got it. I mean, do you know how many senators are there and how many House representatives are there? I mean, it's a process, and I studied really hard, and then I got to the test, and the test was a piece of cake. It was 10 questions, and they were easier than I thought they would be. But I became a U.S. citizen there when I played my second year in Washington. Right after the season, we got knocked out, and I'd been doing the paperwork a little while. I became a U.S. citizen. But the good part is I don't have to not be a Canadian citizen. So I'm dual. My kids are dual, and we can live anywhere we want in North America, except for Mexico.
That's gravy. And just for the record, to piggyback, I thought I had a chance to play in the NHL when I was a U.S. history major in college, but 2 senators per state, and of course, House of Representatives based on population. That story for another day. But speaking of compromise, as we have in our great government in the United States and those types of conversations, can you bring me up to speed? I know you've been skating with a couple of groups in Raleigh of where things stand. Do you feel like we're really moving towards playing at the beginning of August?
Yeah, I think we are. I think just like everybody else, I was just going up and down, up and down. Are we playing? Are we not playing? What are we doing here? Am I getting ready for a season that's not going to happen? What am I doing? And now it seems like all signs are pointing to us playing hockey. That's exciting because we have something to look forward to. Certainly as fans and certainly as players. Selfishly, I obviously want to play. I didn't come back just to play 20 games and then get shut down. But in the big picture of things, it looks as though we will be playing hockey. Training camp is scheduled for the 13th, and we're building up towards that right now.
How have the skates been going? I hear that there are a couple of groups, Jeff Daniels running one and former Hurricane Tim Gleason the other.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we've got a couple more guys coming into town. I believe Jake Gardner and Brady Shea will be coming in today. So I think they'll get tested and then they'll come in. But I think we might lose Jeff Daniels here because the numbers were allowed on the ice at times. So if those guys come in, I think Jeff Daniels will have to go out. But regardless, we'll figure it out there. And if we got to do our drills ourselves, then we do that. But it's just the way it is right now.
And I did hear that our dear friend, your goaltender, Peter Pietro Mrazek, is coming in late this week. It makes me laugh because the first half of this year, when he told me to get back my 6-pack, that I just needed to drink celery juice, that didn't work because he may be able to stop the puck and he's a gamer, clutch performer. But he should be coming in late this week. God only knows what kind of shape he's going to be in.
Let's hope he's in good shape because Reimer's been he's out there with us taking 300 shots a day. I tell you, we're really working him hard with only one goalie on the ice and a lot of guys who want some actions. So, if you get yourself tested, Tripp, maybe you should come out there too and strap on the pads.
God knows it would be good for my mojo to try to improve my body composition.
Yeah, that six pack, maybe. That's maybe what you need to do.
Well, I have a, you know, most of the women tell me I have a washboard stomach just with a little dirty laundry on top. But, not, I don't want to go off on a tangent. I want to ask you, with your 3 cups, a Conn Smythe, this ultra unique circumstance from the beginning of training camp, if it starts on the 13th, right into the first game against the Rangers in Toronto. What do you think is going to be most important, paramount to being able to hit the ground running and succeed in this format?
Well, I think obviously a strong leadership group is going to help you. A system that the guys are familiar with, and they can, fall back on if all else fails. I think youth will be served pretty good as well. So, in coming back, everybody's on a level playing field. When you play a regular season, you've got 82 games of hard play. You've got injuries, and it's really a process, right? It's who's healthiest at the best, who's playing the best. There's a lot of things that go into it to the teams that win Stanley Cups, and this situation, everybody is all bunched up, everybody's even, and really, I think teams that'll have the advantage are the ones that are led well, and certainly we're right at the top of that list, if not the best, with Ronnie Brindamore leading us.
Wait, Willie, I have to tell you, not to blow smoke, but your first game back goes the shootout against the Islanders. And early in the shootout, John set it up on a tee perfectly. I knew that your wonderful mom and dad, Craig and Denise, were watching in Coburg in the man cave. And John said, "How about the script?" And we still had to wait 3 or 4 shooters, but how did you feel on the bench? And it gets to something that I really want to dig in with you, and get to the layers of self-belief. Your first game back, what you felt like before you went out there and scored that goal to win that ultra important game and make the script complete.
Yeah, it was a pretty special night. Actually, a few special games there starting off right when I came back. So, the one thing you don't want to do when you decide to come back after missing some time is just make an ass out of yourself. That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to come back and have people say, "Oh, geez, what was he thinking?" So that's one thing. You want to prove people wrong. And athletes we've been doing that for years, right? That's kind of what drives us sometimes. When people tell you no and you can't do it, and you go out there and prove them wrong. So the first game, it was, I didn't play very much, and I didn't expect to play very much. But the further along you go in the season, I tell you, the better you feel. And when you're just play a game or you're playing 6-7 minutes a night, it's hard on you. And sometimes later on in the season, come February and March, you feel like you can skate forever. And that's obviously when you're feeling the greatest and everything. But when I came back there, I was gassed. I played I don't know how many minutes I played. Roddy played me more than I thought he was going to play me. But I was gassed. I was tired. I didn't play overtime, obviously. Those are for the fast guys out there now. Play 3-on-3. But the further along we got in the shootout, I thought, geez, this actually probably could happen here. Reimer Net was standing tall, and we couldn't get one past Bryce. So I went out down there and I got my butt tapped by Roddy, and he said, "Off you go, bud, you're next." And off I went. It was pretty electric in the arena, that's for sure. That place was loud as always. And when they announced my name, it was pretty special. I just didn't want to let anybody down. So fortunately for me, I was able to slip one in.
Did you know when you picked up that puck at center ice that you were going to shoot not deke?
You know what? I'll tell you a story since we're on a podcast here. So I had the pleasure of playing and learning a lot from one of the best shootout guys in the league, and that's TJ Oshie. And I don't want to say I copied him, because I can't copy TJ Oshie with the moves he has. Very deceptive. He's got a bunch of moves. So I just came down and came at an angle. And Grice is a very unorthodox goalie, meaning he'll stand up if he wants to stand up, and he's very patient. So I went down there and DJ Oshie always told me, he said, go in the same way every time so they don't know what you're going to do. So if you go down on a goalie, you enter in the same way as always, and you have 2 or 3 different moves. So the goalie knows that this move could come, or this move could come, and he's got to respect them all. So, I was just trying to get goalies to respect it, and I went down there, and Grice obviously didn't go down, and I was able to pick a shot 5-hole. But that's where I was looking initially, yes, and certainly watch the guys that go before as well, and just try and make the best shot possible, because these goalies are darn good and they do research as well. So he hasn't seen me in the shootout in a while, and maybe actually no, there's no shootouts anymore, so he's not going to get another crack at me.
I've always loved digging into your thought process, because it's really thoughtful, but it's never over analysis that leads to paralysis. I told you, I remember that, I'm close with your parents, and Denise, your mom, came on the mom's trip, and I'm trying to remember when that game was, how many games it was into your return. And you were really good. You got back to Justin Williams being memorable each and every shift. And then you were on fire. You were really going when play was suspended, most recently in Detroit. What do you take from that? Because the only way to replicate in a lot of ways is playing. Justin, what can you take from that to get back to that level of hockey, right from the get-go in this scenario?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but the good thing with me is I'm not playing catch up anymore, right? I mean, I was trying to play catch up with the guys who had played 40 games already and just jumping into a season. So they were all flying around, and I'm just trying to keep up. And now that everyone's been off for over 3 months, everyone's on the same playing field. So it's kind of like the first game of the season, right, or the first game of preseason, or whatever you want to call it. But everyone's the same. So the hardest workers are really the ones that are going to have most success, because your talent and your skill, that comes after the hard work. So the guys are willing to put the hard work in early to have a great training camp, to never take a shift off. Those are the differences that are ultimately going to hopefully let you advance. I don't think we have much time to ease into it, and it's a very unique situation, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be great TV, great drama. Heck, I'm really looking forward to it.
Will before skill. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed the playoff series against your most recent former team, Washington, last spring. Brady Shea comes over from the Rangers, who you'll now play, Justin, and I've really enjoyed getting to know him. I also know he has a huge heart, just like you do, and he didn't want to leave the New York Rangers. If he came to you, and he's fallen in love with being a Hurricane now, but if he came to you, having succeeded against the Washington Capitals, and said, Justin, what's the proper approach here, my first to play-in series, but against my former team, what would you tell him? What pearls would you extend?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because before we played Washington, obviously, I've got a lot of really close friends. I only played there for 2 years, but I became really close with a lot of guys on that team. And I think first and foremost, you just don't worry about being friendly. I think that's the first thing that you can just do. Just don't worry about being friendly at all. Don't be tapping guys in the butt. Don't be smiling at anybody. That's just not the way I operate. Before we realized last year that we were going to play that we were going to play Washington, I think a bunch of us got in a little group text that said, all right, friends off for 2 weeks. I'll see you at the end. Have a great series. And that's the way it is. You can chirp, you can hit, you can do everything. Just focus on winning. Focus on doing what's best for your team. Not being liked. Everyone at the end of the handshake line, everything's forgotten throughout the playoffs and throughout the playoff series. So usually there's no hard feelings at the end of it because guys are just trying to win. I guess that's probably the best advice I would give them. Just go out there and play yourself. If you tell a guy to frig off up there, don't feel bad about it. You'll be just fine, and they'll forgive you for it. But just go get it.
Gosh, you're reminding me. I guess it was 3 games before play got suspended. You guys had a practice day in New York before you played and won a big game against the Islanders on a Saturday. I had a
Yeah.
one-on-one conversation with Barry Trotz the Friday before the game. And boy, did he have some great things to say about his time with you. First thing he said to me is he said, when you were on the Caps, he said there were times that he was ready to snap, to deliver a strong message to the team. And you, with your experience, grabbed him and said, Barry, don't do that. We'll take care of this in the room. And he was so impressed with that and knew it was the right call. As a player, why is the player's message at times not the one from the coach, the appropriate thing? And is there a general manual for how you go about that process?
I don't think there's a general rule. It's just a feeling, right? You know when things aren't going right as a player on your bench. You can just sense it. You can just feel when something's not right, right? And coaches, you hear them talk every day. You hear them talk at practice. They hear your message 3, 4 times a day, right? And especially on a game day, you'll hear them before practice in a meeting. You hear them on practice. You hear them in the power play meeting. You hear them during the game. You hear them during periods. You hear them between periods. So it's a constant, you know, same voice coming in. And if the coach comes in and snaps, yes, it happens. You don't want that to happen. But, when a player comes in and says, boys, let's get this stuff together, or is really emotional on what they need to say, guys will listen a lot more to someone who doesn't talk as much as opposed to somebody who's talking all the time. And sometimes you need a coach to come in and throw some chairs around, and sometimes you need a player just to show their emotion and show that they care. And we did that quite a few times there in Washington. And ultimately, you want the room to govern itself. That's what you want. You don't want anyone else to do it. You want the players to do it.
So Barry, Justin went on in that conversation and he said, Tripp, I don't think we would have won the cup had it not been for Justin's influence. And then he said he would bet that from his players, the Caps, that nobody got more texts after their win to hoist the cup in Vegas than you. Now I have to ask this question. So during your series, you know me, I dig in with the boys, and when Svetch and Ovechkin went at it, I was really hard on Alex Ovechkin. I was really hard on him. And then I see your embrace with him after Brock scores, and you set it up in Game 7. Why should I? Because I know you do. Why should I really like Alex Ovechkin?
I mean, that goes with kind of what your question was a couple minutes ago of how do you best approach playing an ex-teammate or playing anybody for that matter. Don't worry about not being liked. And Ovi is a very, very likable guy. He's number one, obviously the best goal scorer I've ever played with. That's easy. He's a fun guy to be around. He's a great team guy. He's a guy's guy. You have a lot of fun with him. So I think those aspects right there that he kind of fits into your category, Tripp. Obviously, we all were upset with the way things went down, but I mean, sports are unpredictable at times, and your emotions are out there on the ice for everyone to see. And in a split second, anything can happen. Ovi's not a fighter either. It's not like he's a seasoned fighter. He's just a super strong guy, and so is Svetch. Would they do it again? I don't know. You'd have to ask them. But it was certainly a focal point in that series, and something that we used to rally around. But don't get me wrong. Obviously, Alex didn't shy away either. He had a hell of a series against us. Played extremely well, and won to this day. Probably one of the top 3 series I've ever been a part of. So it was great. Fortunately for us, we won it. I was, if we didn't win it, it probably wouldn't be in my top three, but we won it, so it is in my top three. But it was just a great series.
What are the other two? I'm certainly guessing. I'll bet you dinner. One of them is when you came back from San Jose down 3-0 as a King.
Yeah, that's one as well. And another one would be the conference finals in 2014 against Chicago Blackhawks, Game 7, double. Um, you're gonna miss these things when you're gone. I can't. So series is ahead of us.
Getting to a Game 7 approach, Justin. Let's just take Washington. Okay. Was there any moment in that game, in regulation or overtime, that you said to yourself, this is ours?
I don't know if I said this is ours. Um, I think the teams just really gave everything they got. And I remember like after the first overtime, we were just coming out for the second overtime, and Tom Wilson, a good friend of mine, was just stretching next to the bench, the Caps bench, and we had gone at it. He had crushed me about 4 or 5 times, and I told him I wasn't very a big fan of him, and whatever, right? And we just looked at each other, kind of locked eyes for a second, and just smiled and winked at each other, like this has been a hell of a series. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But obviously, I'm hoping we win. But it was just kind of just a moment that you just got to respect amongst players that this was a good series, and whatever happens, happens. The next goal wins it, and someone's going home. But it was pretty special.
I'm a big Tom Wilson fan. I've had some great talks with your former teammate over the years. Justin, you mentioned, at the top of the show here, digging in applies to all facets, all professions, all areas of life. I know you hate, and I'm not going to get consumed by it, the nickname that you've earned. I wouldn't be mind being called Mr. Game Sevener if I was Wayne the Great One. That would be sort of cool. Um, but in terms of in life, when the moment's big, because we all encounter a big moment from time to time, regardless of what path we go down, what profession we're in. Do you have any advice as to how you grab the moment when it comes, not let it grab you?
I Tripp, I think you just have to be confident in who you are, and your abilities. Tripp, when you're going to a Game 7 call, I mean, are you nervous before the game? I mean, you're nervous. Are you nervous at all before you go up in that press box and call a game? Are you?
No, actually, that's how I know I'm doing the right thing because, I remember John said to me at the top of the show before Game 7, he goes, "Well, what do you think, Tripp Tracy?" And I'm like, John, I had a dream this afternoon. I don't even know why I needed a nap, but he said, I had a dream that the Canes got down, Sebastian Aho scored a goal, and they came from behind and won the game. I have confidence that in myself that I wouldn't have had 15 years ago broadcasting that I never had as a player. When I was a player, I was afraid of giving up a big goal and letting my teammates down. Hurts to say it, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, so you're going to a game, you're like, man, I hope I don't screw up on air. So you're not doing any of that either, right? And that's good. That's why you're so good at what you do. And as hockey players, that's what you have to have too. You can't go in there being, oh man, I don't want to mess this up for my team, or I don't want to have this turnover that costs us a goal, or I don't want to miss this pass and they go in on a breakaway and score. You can't worry about that. You got to go play. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust that your work ethic and your capabilities are good enough to help your team win. That's all you have to do. You can't err on the side of caution. You just can't do it. You got to err on the side of enthusiasm and go get it, and don't take no for an answer and all that stuff. So that's how I've gotten through it. Just give it your best. If you mess up, hey, you mess up, but don't mess up doing it the right way.
You said earlier that sometimes it's good to have a chip on your shoulder. What would you say to the balancing act of a chip on your shoulder being a good vehicle, but not crossing that line where it's like resentment and you're pouring poison down your own throat?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's always the thought between confidence and cockiness, right? I mean, where do they draw the line on that? I don't know where they draw the line on it. It's all personal preference, right? You know, when a kid comes up and he's confident with himself, um, you know, I love that, but you know, you better step back and pick up the pucks after practice and wait for us to get on the plane and do all the things that you need to do. Also, right? I love when a kid's confident, and that's what makes great players great. They're confident in themselves and they're cocky, and I think everyone to a certain extent is.
Who who would be, because I know when you were an outstanding captain last season, there was a little bit in you and all the captains you've had. Uh, can you talk about what pieces you took from all of them when you wore the C for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, it was when Roddy talked to me about um, the potential situation. Um, obviously it's very humbling, right? I mean, there's 30, well, 31, when Seattle comes, but they're very coveted positions, and they say a lot about what people think about you. So you have to take that, not be bashful about it, and just um, of playing Ronnie Francis, um, Becky, Rick Tocchet, Keith Primo, these guys that came up, Eric Desjardins. I can go on and on about who I've played with, who I look up to, and there's so many guys that I'm not saying right now, but you just when I look around and I see guys prepare for games, I see guys do different things. I'm like, oh, okay, I like that, or I like that, or I like what he said there. You grab a little bit of it, and that's all it is. And you have to be aware of what your team is too. If your team's a real quiet team, then you might have to speak up more. But if your team's a little bit louder, then great. You can kind of sit back a little bit and watch. Um, when we were in LA, we had a one of the best leadership groups I've ever seen. Everybody on that team was a leader. The captain was Dustin Brown, and he didn't say much at all because everyone else around him was able to do it. And he just sat back, and whenever he said something, obviously people were going to listen, but he didn't have to do much, right? He was there. He did his work on the ice. You followed him. He worked his tail off, and that's being a leader also. So I took a little bit from everybody, and I enjoyed my time as a captain. And now Jordan's doing an awesome job himself.
What makes Jordan a good captain?
Jordan's a little bit more confident in himself than he was a few years ago. He's not shy to tell someone they need to pick it up. He's not shy about speaking up. He's not shy about going into Roddy to talk about getting the practice off. He's just a great guy and an awesome hockey player who nobody in the league ever wants to play against. And I know that from experience. If you're matched up against Jordan Stahl, you're just rolling your eyes and being like, oh, how do I get away from this guy? So he's a little bit more quiet. He's gotten a little bit more vocal, which is awesome to see. And he's a great leader. I think probably a lot of those Stahls are. They just kind of have it in them that they're able to bring guys in, and Jordan's able to bring guys in. He's got that aura about him. Now. He walks into the room, Jordan's in the room, and that's the sign of a leader, sign of someone that people can look up to. And he's done great.
Knowing how close you've always been with his brother Eric, this was really cool. A couple of years ago, in Glendale, night before a game against the Coyotes, John Forsen and I just happened to run into the two of you and Jordan at Fleming's Steakhouse. And you guys said, John, Tripp, sit down. Let's have dinner. And we had a ball. We really did. But I remember looking across when the entrees arrived, and John and I have, I think, big time ribeyes, and the two NHL athletes have got like petite fillets. It's hilarious, but on a serious note, at what point in your career did you actually have to, even with all the exercising you do you have to change your eating habits?
Yeah, well, Jordan and I, whenever we have a meal, we go out and I always ask him kind of on the road, what'd you have last night? Because if he's my line mate, I want him to have fish because we say fish is fast, steak slow. So I said, what'd you have last night? He's like, oh, I had fish. I said, yes. But if you had steak, he's like, well, I'm going to rumble in the corners. And I'm like, all right, yes, that's okay as well. So, I mean, listen, when I first came to the league, I was 170 pounds, and they said, get some weight on. So I wasn't having a petite fillet back then. I was having the 36-ounce porterhouse. What was that in the old Great Outdoors, the old 96er?
Oh, yes.
So I've eaten everything I could, right? And now it's slowed down a little bit. As you know, Tripp, as you get older, you need to treat your body a little bit better. Maybe you don't know that. I'm trying to tell you, though, Tripp, you need to treat your body a little bit better and listen to it. And that's what I've been able to do. So, hey, sometimes you got to do yoga and you got to have fish. You got to do what you got to do.
I just thought of something. I saw the announcement that at the Bubble in Toronto that if you want to wear the suit and tie, you can. And you've always had an eye for style, but if you want to say from your time in LA, wear a powder blue sweatsuit to the game, you can. What do you think you're going to be going with when it comes to the threads?
I don't know. I mean, you see how these guys dress these days? I mean, they got to jump off a tower to get into those suits. I mean, they're like spandex. They're like those women's yoga pants now that guys wear. And I wear them, I'm wearing them close to tighter. You can't look old. You can't have all this fabric, around your legs. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to wear. I'm not too worried about it. If we just follow our owner, we'll just wear a sweatsuit, just like Tom does. So we'll see. But I don't have any plans to be the best dressed guy on the comeback tour here.
Speaking of, I mentioned LA. I remember because I'm watching you en route to your second cup as a king. You end up winning the Conn Smythe, and I'm, this is probably a character flaw, but I'm like, oh man, this would be pretty cool to win the Conn Smythe in La La Land. But Justin Williams, Pride of Coburg, I mean, that type of thing, that stuff off the ice surface doesn't matter. But was there one? I'm watching Tom Cruise at the games, David Beckham, Will Ferrell. Was there one particular moment during that run with a Hollywood A-lister that even made an impression with Justin Williams?
There was, as you said, you looked in the stands every now and then, you'd see quite a few familiar faces and people you'd seen. I would say probably the one or two. Tom Hanks was, for me, that was kind of cool. I mean, seeing Tom Hanks and, talking for a couple of minutes, that was pretty cool. I would say probably another one would be Will Ferrell. He came to a lot of games too, and when he came in, so there's the dressing room in LA, as you know, and then just down the hallway there's this chairman's lounge, which is a lounge, just like basically the celebrity lounge. It's where everyone goes. You have to have a pass in there. You're not bothered very much. So we play soccer before the games out there. And, we play that 2-touch soccer that all the hockey teams play. And we're playing in there, and down the hall comes Will Ferrell. And we say, hey, Will, why don't you hop into the game for a second? So he says, all right. He comes over, and he's in the circle here with us. And, we start kicking the ball around and play keep up and everything. And, he's actually pretty good. I think he's a pretty good athlete, from what I saw anyway. And but we didn't give him any reprieve. We got him out as fast as possible. We got it up, ball went up, bam, we hit him. Bam, we hit him again. And he was out, and he said, how the hell were you guys? He left away. But, that was actually that was a fun little interaction.
That's pretty cool. What's also cool, and for me, what a privilege, and how many people would love to be in my seat, because I remember calling your games when you were playing on a line with Rod Brindamore and the magic the two of you had. I think Rod would say without question his favorite winger of his whole career, which we hope will land him in the Hall of Fame, was you. Have you ever had any trouble? I don't think so, but had any trouble since he's become the coach and, you were the captain, now you're a leader on the team? Has that relationship changed even one iota?
If it has, I haven't felt it. I haven't felt it at all. the transition seemed pretty easy. I mean, he just has a different title, and I have a few more years under my belt. But I'm sure he had been through it. I'm not actually sure if he had been through it playing with a teammate and then having his coach. I'm not sure, but I don't know. It's pretty easy, and it's wouldn't be hard as some people might think, because he knows me, I know him, he knows what I'm capable of, I know what he wants out of players, I know what he wants out of me. So in that aspect, it's been a piece of cake, and um, I think we've been able to roll with it and get the message into the room, because basically the captain, what he's doing is he's conveying the message of the coach into the room and making sure everybody's on board with it. And we have the same makeup, I think. Um, Very similar personalities as well. So conveying that message is basically like conveying mine. So it's been pretty easy.
I don't know how many weeks ago it was, but you put out a tweet about Rod's candidacy to the Hall of Fame that, truthfully, Willie, grabbed me right deep in my heart. Hopefully he'll get there. Wish he was already. Think he should be already. But if you were standing in front of the committee delivering a closing argument, Counselor Williams, what would you say?
Well, I don't think you can. I think the simplest thing that people do is look at, well, this guy's in, why isn't this guy in, right? I mean, that's the simplest way to do it. But you can't facet that, because it's different. Sometimes players are in different times, different eras. But Roddy played through quite a few eras, and he succeeded at all. He was. You want major awards? All right, he won a Stanley Cup, and he won the Selkie a few times. Do you want leadership? Okay, he was the captain. Do you want commitment to the game of hockey? He's been in hockey his whole life. Do you want a guy who scored points? Well, he's got over 1,000. You want games? He's got I don't know how many. It never ends with what he is, and I don't think anybody's ever said a bad thing about Roddy. I honestly can't remember one person saying a bad thing about him. I just think it's a matter of time before he gets there. They're obviously just making him wait a little longer, but God, I just can't see it not happening. Hopefully it does.
I'm going to let you in. When the Canes played in Vegas this year, we had a couple of days there after the game, and it had to be a 5:00 p.m. dinner. Yeah, 5:00 with Rod and his wife Amy. She was in town. Amy was dragging him.
When he goes with his wife and kids, does he eat in like 6 minutes? Just like
maybe 3.5. Maybe 3.5. And
you have a dinner with Roddy, and it's like over in like 12 minutes. He's asking for the bill. I'm like, geez, really already?
And so that one was at 5:00. I think it was done by 5:25. It was at Gordon Ramsay restaurant because Amy was dragging him to a show. Okay. And he was all fired up about that. But spontaneously, not to put you on the spot, and I'm trying to remember how your name came up. And both Rod and Amy, they looked at me and they said, wow, Justin is an extraordinary husband, an extraordinary father. And it really, it was a cool moment. And I know your mom and dad. So both from, I guess being a husband, being a dad, talk about the influence of your mom and dad and why that is far more important than anything you've ever done at the rink.
I'm not going to come on this podcast. You're going to make me feel uncomfortable, Tripp. I don't like talking about this stuff. You got these people saying nice things about me. I don't take compliments very well sometimes. But I don't know. I think you're just a product of your upbringing. You really are. And my parents showed me the way. My father showed me how to treat a woman and how to raise kids. And, I don't know. You're just a product of your upbringing. And my parents are great people, and the apple doesn't far fall from the tree type thing. My sister as well is great with her kids, and obviously first and foremost, it's about family. It's about my duty is to raise my kids the best way possible and make them good people, regardless of what you believe, what religion you are, anything. you want your kids to be good people, and I think that's obviously what my wife and Kelly and I are trying to instill in them.
Okay, enough of the pleasantries. How many strokes are you asking for a side during our big golf match we've been talking about with Chicken Kiev on the line?
You're giving me strokes?
Well, I mean, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm done with these pleasantries. I'm gonna carve you on that course like a Thanksgiving turkey. Since you're a dual citizen,
if
Canadian and American Thanksgiving.
If you got to give me strokes, holy jeez, you're gonna be in trouble, buddy.
Well,
I might take that new microphone right there. I might play for that microphone and take that thing.
Hey, you lit a fire. You lit a fire saying you don't take compliments. Well, hey, I can play that game, Huckleberry.
Oh no, that's good, Tripp. I can't wait to go play. Hopefully, we'll get to a place up there in Michigan with you soon, and you can show me your course, and I can carve you up on it.
Well, I look forward to that. I wish you the best of luck. I remember the second round, 2006, Jersey with Marty Brodeur. They had won, I want to say 12 games consecutively to end the regular season. Then they swept the Rangers in the first round. And you were in his kitchen. I mean, it is tough to rattle the winningest goaltender in the history of regular season hockey. So if a young, hungry player came to you and said, Justin, what are the different ways that I can optimize my ability to be a good net front player? What would you say?
Well, on that particular team, I had to find a hole, right? I mean, all these playmakers around you. So, I mean, can I go stand in front of the net? Yeah, any ass can go stand in front of the net. So I tried to do my best with it. I mean, these guys were hot. They were just winning every game. And obviously Brodeur, I mean, he's Martin Brodeur. He's pretty darn good. One of the best goalies ever. So all I tried to do was just get right in his face. Legally, outside the blue paint. If you get pushed in, you get pushed in a little bit, but you try to gain an advantage somehow you can. That's what you do in playoff series.
I can remember how much, I mean, you were in his kitchen cooking eggs in that series. I'm going to ask you a couple of just thoughts for the Hurricane, the Caniac Nation. What impresses you most about the present and the future of Sebastian Aho?
His drive. I think that's what impresses me. His drive. Some guys have that next ability, right? Not just like if it's 2-0, that's fine. If it's 3-0, that's fine. But he wants more. He wants more every time he's out on the ice. He doesn't just want to be good. He wants to be great. And that's an attitude, right? That's something you can't teach. That's inborn. That's learned. However you want to quantify it. That's who he is. He wants to be great. And fortunately for him, he's got a lot of guys around him that can help him do that. This team is stacked with talent. And when I'm gone, and when guys move on, and he moves up and gets older, and he's gonna have to teach the younger kids as well. And his work ethic is great. He's going to be a leader on this team. He is now. But certainly not shocked if he wears a letter soon.
Andrei Svechnikov.
Exact same thing. Exact same. I mean, sometimes you're not sure what you can get. Sometimes from you get a Russian player. Is he going to come over and play? Is he not going to come over and play? What kind of guy is he? But I mean, this guy is he's just aces all over. He's a good kid. And whenever someone mentions his name, they smile. And that's how you know you got a good one. He's out there working hard. I mean, this guy is at the rink. Like if we end a game at like 10:30, I mean, he's not out there for another like 2 hours. He's shooting pucks into a net. Stretching, taking care of himself. I mean, he's 20 years old. 20 years old. No, he's not. He's 19. Is he 19? 20? How old is he?
You asking me? Oh my gosh. This is
anyway, he's young.
I should know that. It is my job.
He's way too young to have that type of commitment and discipline, but he's got it. So if you ever want to as he obviously ages too, if you ever want to see how it's done and how to be a pro, he's gonna be one to follow. That's for sure.
These are still such young guys, and I have a I don't like to play favorites, I've told you, but your son Jackson, affectionately known as Jax, he had a birthday Friday, and he's playing hockey in Raleigh right now. In
Hmm.
terms of my dream, and that is when we're starting to see with regularity players that grew up in Raleigh, played in Raleigh youth hockey, drafted, say, in the first round by the Carolina Hurricanes and playing for the Hurricanes. How far are we away from that dream coming to fruition?
You just got to slow down there. I mean, he's
I'm not talking about Jackson specifically. You have a bird's eye view of where
yeah, yeah.
youth hockey's at.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously come a long way, and Roddy had the ability to coach his son Skyler too, and now he's playing in Quinnipiac up in Boston. So I mean, for now, once you get to a certain age, you need to move up north. But it used to be at a younger age you had to do it, but now we have such a very good program here. The Junior Canes have a great program that you can stay longer and. Before you have to go up there for college and all that stuff. You don't have to move away when you're 13, 14 years old to build a family. So we're on our way here. But I actually got a funny story with my Gramps. He's 90. He's 94, and he's circled year I believe 2026, which would be Jackson's birth year, which coincidentally will be the year that he turns 100 years old. And he said, Jackson, I'm hanging on until you're drafted into the NHL. I'm going to be 100 years old. And Jackson was laughing. He said, okay. And so it'd be awesome to see if that was ever came to fruition. But kind of a special moment to me, his great grandfather and himself.
Oh my gosh, would that be cool? On your mom or your dad's side?
On my dad's side, yeah.
Big
Yeah,
Craig.
yeah, Big Craig. Yeah.
That's cool. Um, okay, a couple of fast firing questions. Funniest teammate off the top of your head. I don't know if there are any stories that you can share in your career.
Uh, with a lot of funny guys. One of the funniest guys I've ever played with is Todd Fedoruk. I play with him in Philadelphia, and he's still a good friend of mine. I mean, he is like a Chris Farley, just attitude. He does a Chris Farley impression. You're like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? And then we played with Ken Hitchcock as our coach. He did an awesome Ken Hitchcock impression. I mean, this guy was hilarious. Another funny guy, Matt Green, in LA. Kami, obviously, you had him on the podcast a little while ago. Just characters, right? I mean, you can't all be choir boys on an NHL team. You have to have unique personalities and guys that sit around and make you laugh. And some guys chirp and some get quiet, or some are real funny and some are real serious. And you have to have all types. And those are some of the funnier ones, that's for sure.
Okay, I'm going to test you. What person in the Hurricanes organization is related to Chris Farley?
No, I don't know.
The guy you're digging in with.
I was gonna guess. I didn't want to throw it out there though.
My godmother, God rest her soul, my Aunt Mary Kay Farley. Yep. And you didn't know. Unfortunately, that sense of humor is not genetic in the extended family, sadly.
I mean, he made so many funny. It's just a shame his life ended the way it did. But wow, I mean, I don't know. You just don't really. I mean, I don't know who you can compare him to. I mean, you can't compare people to people, but it's just such everything he did was just funny. And, I watched the documentary on him and everything. Obviously, behind the scenes, there were some other things. It's a whole other story, but that guy was just hilarious in all his movies. Tommy Boy is one of my favorite movies. Just an awesome show.
John Candy might be a guy that maybe some similarities. The great Canadian comedian. Oh my God, you mentioned the great outdoors and the old 96 or earlier. How about a teammate or a coach that was able to snap with the most vigor?
Was able to snap. Well, I mean, it's pretty easy. I played with Daryl Sutter. I played with him as a coach, and I don't know. He was exactly what we needed in Los Angeles, but he had some pretty good ones throughout his years. I remember. Yes, we were in Minnesota, and in Minnesota, it's a big room where you can see everybody. And then the coach's office is just off the dressing room, where it usually is. And we had a terrible first. You know what? It actually wasn't even a bad first period. I think we were tied. We might have even been winning 1-0. But all of a sudden, you see a chair, one of those plastic or metal chairs. You see it fly out of the coach's room and hammer the bricks behind it. And as soon as we see that, we're like, what the heck was that? And the coaches start flying out of the room because the other assistant coaches. And they just get out of the room and another chair comes flying out there again. And he lost it on us that period. But it was funny now, but scary at that time.
A flying chair.
Yeah.
All right, pal. I have 2 questions before I let you go. One is lighthearted. Okay, our well-documented golf match that sadly I'm giving you strokes. Chicken Kiev is on the line, and it was both of our favorite childhood dishes. Why did you love it so much? Your mom Denise making it for you, and what makes Chicken Kiev sing for you?
Well, Denise is a great cook. Great cook. I think it's because it was such a pain in the ass to make. I wanted my mom to do it. It's not easy to make, but she makes it awesome. My wife Kelly now, she makes it for me on my birthday every year. And she complains about it the whole time, how hard it is to make. But I don't know. I listen. It's a great dish. It's got butter. It's got chives. It's got fried chicken. There's no way you're gonna beat me. I want this thing. I'm gonna be making every pot on you.
What happens? Hey, what happens? Because you talked about Jordan Stahl always asking, what do you have for, you ask him when you're playing on his line. What are you thinking if you,
I have to be an off-season thing.
no, but what do you, Justin, what are you thinking if it's, before one of these games in the playoffs, you say, hey, Gronk, that's his affectionate nickname. What do you have for dinner last night? And he goes, Chicken Kiev. That's not going to make him quick. Like if he had a piece of sea bass, is it?
No, that won't make him quick. No, it certainly won't make him quick. And I'd just be upset if he didn't invite me over. That would be the only thing.
Okay. Finally, all of the places that you played had success. I think every Hurricanes fan, I think every resident of the Triangle has always felt that this is the spot that grabbed you, and you've made it pretty clear that even after hockey's done, this is where you're going to be in your life after hockey. What is it about North Carolina that is such a good fit now and always for Justin Williams?
Yeah, we like the climate, even though it's 97 degrees and humid here right now. I like the climate most of the time, not now. I like the people. I like the golf courses around. I like the whole feel of North Carolina. Sorry, there's something going on here, but when we were, a good story here is a few years ago, before I signed here, we had actually bought a piece of property here, and thinking that maybe one day we'll settle down here. So it was a couple months before free agency. We had just bought it. We had nothing. Carolina didn't really approach me at that time about coming, obviously because they couldn't. But I wasn't quite sure I was going to be a fit. So when free agency came around, and we started to talk to Carolina a little bit, and we thought that it might happen. And then we eventually did sign. I was like, all right, we're going to need that property sooner rather than later. We're going to have to build this house sooner rather than later. So we built a house here. We moved in last year. It just feels like home here. My son Jackson was born here. My daughter was born in California. I think we'll be here for a while.
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know if it's an earth moving or construction. Well, it might be John Deere or Caterpillar, because as you're going to see a video at some point from me, Justin, because I sell nuts and bolts, and I think that these earth moving companies should be looking to advertise you from head to toe because of your ability to dig in. I I my last typically I would, put together a supreme compliment
You know
because
what you should do, Tripp?
what?
You should like make a book of Tripp's dad jokes. That's what you should do. That thing would be a good seller. Very good seller. Get some money for charity, get some Tripp dad jokes. That'd be actually pretty fun.
Well, it's a thought. I am a voracious reader in my downtime. Typically, at the end of this, JW, I would give you a compliment because aside from our professional relationship, somewhere along the line, and I think it was your first tour of duty in Carolina, we became very good friends. But you don't handle compliments well. That's been crystal clear. So, and there might be, I hope not many, but when you go home after games and watch the film, what the heck is Tripp seeing? What's he talking about? So the shoe's on the other foot. Do you have any questions for me before we call it a day here on Digging In?
Well, I mean, I had the pleasure of watching these first few months on TV, and to be honest, I hadn't really seen you in action very much, right? But I think your give and take with John is just so natural, and obviously you guys have been doing it a long time together, so it should be natural. But obviously your friendship, it just resonates on the screen. I think that's what when people turn on the Canes, they watch you guys and they enjoy seeing you. So, questions for you. I already kind of asked you if you were ever nervous, so I guess I'm not going to ask you that again. But what is your top three cities to go visit when you're on the road with the Canes?
I would say Montreal because of having the broadcast booth right above the ice and having had the ability to call two dramatic Hurricanes victories there. I'm trying to think if we've gone to Medusa together before. And, truth be told, I've painted Montreal all over the town a few times. So that's a great town. And then original six franchise. Willie, I really enjoyed Washington because we stayed in Georgetown. You right at the top of the list. My dad having passed away, my mom was grieving, and what you did in the playoffs last year single-handedly helped her in the most unbelievable way. So she came to Georgetown a couple of times, and I have a brother that went to Georgetown. So we went to Cafe Milano. I shouldn't even have had a hotel room. I lived there the whole series. Laurent, the general manager. So Washington, and then the outcome, pretty darn special. I could tell a couple of stories. I'll tell one quick one. LA, you were on the team, and John and I were at a place called the Barfly on Sunset. Yep. And we were having a few drinks, and but they were transforming the restaurant into like a dancing stage. And so but we didn't want to move.
While you're eating?
Yeah, but they were starting to move tables out. But
Yeah.
I said to the waiter or the waitress, they said, "Hey, listen, what's it going to take for us to stay right here? We'll eat twice if we have to." And because it was starting to really elevate its vibe. And so, so they said, "Well, if you buy a nice bottle of wine." So I bought the bottle of wine. So now we've got dancers all around us, okay, as we're eating for the second time. And there's a roped off table, nobody there, and we're waiting for, whoever it's going to be to show up. John and I. And all of a sudden, in walks in his bathrobe. It wasn't a Mike Commodore bathrobe, but Hugh Hefner and all of his bunnies. So that was that was a memorable night with John. I used to really enjoy the towns a lot more than I do now, but those would be a couple of my favorites on top of Everest.
Good. Nothing on the West Coast?
I love Vancouver. As a matter of fact, do you remember? I'll finish with this. God knows I have my faults, but I do have a memory like an elephant. I had dinner with you and somebody else in Vancouver. It was quiet, but it was really good years ago. Who was it?
I don't have a memory like an elephant. When people remind me, that's when I have a good memory. Oh yeah, I'm the oh yeah guy, not the do you remember one.
Initials JC.
John Carlson?
No, he never played for the Canes. He is a defenseman, though.
Oh, Joe Corvo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You, me, and Joe. And I'll tell you, I love Vancouver. I really love Vancouver. I mean, I still love it, despite the fact that I met, a woman there in a relationship gone bad. So, it easily could, now be on my, worst list. But I love Van, and I wish that you were in Banff when when Mike Commie, the Robe Commodore, jumped in the general manager's seat, because Donnie Waddell wasn't coming to Banff, in December. And what a ride that was, with all the boys going to Banff, knowing we had a couple off days. That was when you were on hiatus, my dear friend. I wish you were there, because that was pretty cool.
Me too. I wish I was there too.
Well, hopefully sometime in the future. Justin, I'm not going to give you a compliment. I'll see you on the golf course. I appreciate your friendship. That's more than you know. That's the extent of my compliment to you.
All right. Thank you, Tripp. It's been a pleasure on this podcast. I'm sure we could talk for hours, but I guess it's time to go.
It's time to go. You got a Stanley Cup to go win. So I'm going to let you do it. Have a great afternoon, my dear friend.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody to follow Digging In at Dig In Tripp on Twitter and Instagram. And please rate us with honesty. We also can be located on Apple and Spotify. Thank you to a guy that digs in like none other, the great Justin.